Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and thank you for calling me on this first day of the budget debate. I draw the House's attention to my interests, which are declared in the register. I don't think, Madam Deputy Speaker, any Finance Minister or Chancellor has faced a more difficult year than my right honourable friend has faced. And I think he has commanded the House and carried out his duties with quite exceptional skill and devotion. And the first thing I want to say about the budget is it comes at the end of this very difficult year, and I think it is an extremely good one. So I start really where my right honourable friend has just left off. The other thing I want to say is that I have been extremely concerned, as the Chancellor knows, about the cut in universal credit. I've been conscious too that it was a temporary measure designed by the government to put its arms round people who were very vulnerable as the pandemic set going. But nevertheless, any cut in benefit like this is a controversial matter. And I do think he has been extraordinarily skilled in dealing with reducing the taper rate of universal credit. This is an extremely good way of approaching it, and I congratulate him on that. And I want to make just three brief points. The first is local and regional. It concerns the West Midlands and in particular my own constituency of Sutton Coldfield. We are very pleased that we have got the £1 billion for a transport fund in the West Midlands. Of course, it has gone to the Mayor of Manchester as well. It is backing for the regional mayoral structure. It is very welcome. It will, I believe, for us in Sutton Coldfield, getting money from this fund enable us to start major work on the town centre renewal. Town centre renewal plan is all set. It needs some taxpayers' money to help on the transport issues, and I'm very pleased indeed that the announcement has been made this week about that. In the West Midlands, we also want money from the skills budget. The Prime Minister singled out Andy Street, our Mayor, for the work that he had done in boot camps for digital retraining. It was pioneered in the West Midlands. It's a model being taken out nationally. This is incredibly important if we are to capture the vital importance of growth, which a number of my right honourable friends have set out in their remarks. The skills agenda is vital. There is money for skills, and we want it in the West Midlands. And thirdly, the brownfield money to ensure that homes for the future are built on brownfield sites and not on the green belt. We are looking for a £200 million accelerator from that in the West Midlands so that we can get houses built and protect the green belt. I have in my own constituency one of the biggest house building programmes in the country at Langley on Sutton Coldfield's green belt site. It was a scheme much loved of Labour Birmingham City Council, in my view quite wrongly waved through by a Conservative Secretary of State. Anyway, that is done now. We'll get the best we can for the town out of that development. But we want to see homes built, and we want to see them built in the right place, and that's why the brownfield money is so important. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the Royal Town of Sutton Coldfield, we have four particular priorities: the town centre, the cottage hospital, our Royal Park, and also the town hall. All of those require, for the development and the aspirations we have for them, a little bit of taxpayers' money, and we're very glad indeed that on at least one, if not three of those, we have managed to convince the government and the regional mayor of the importance of support. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make was moving from the parochial to the national and indeed the international. As we look at the COP that is coming up shortly, it is clear that in terms of the UK's own climate strategy, the government is doing extremely well. I think that the report that was published this week, which sets out the importance of reaching net zero emissions by 2050, that the UK will be powered entirely by clean energy by 2035, the subsidies for replacing domestic boilers, the incentives to switch to electric, incredibly important in the West Midlands in respect of Jaguar Land Rover, who will only make electric cars from 2025, the quadrupling of offshore wind, the significant advances in carbon capture and storage, and of course the 500,000 new jobs which this agenda will unlock, as well as huge private sector investment. Those are very important matters where Britain is clearly setting the right example and Britain is leading, and that is very good. By contrast, Madam Deputy Speaker, I am keeping my fingers crossed that the Prime Minister's unique boosterism will pull a rabbit out of a hat for the COP, because, as the Prime Minister himself has said, the approach to the COP is very challenged. And we learnt today about the waste of £37 billion on test and trace from the Public Accounts Committee. I'd merely point out to the Treasury bench that just 10% of that is the £4 billion that has been cut so damagingly from the international development budget. Now, of course, it would be churlish of me not to recognise that the Chancellor has today asserted his conviction that we must return to the 0.7 and that we will be able to do so, I think he said, by 2024-2025. And I'm fighting the inner cynic in me to note that this commitment is given for a period just after the likely date of the next election. But nevertheless, Madam Deputy Speaker, if the 0.7 is restored by that date, I promise the Chancellor of the Exchequer that, if he's still Chancellor or not Prime Minister by then, but I promise the Chancellor of the Exchequer that when he is progressing north at the end of the week to his own constituency, if he can take time to come to the royal town of Sutton Coldfield, I will buy him the best dinner that the town can provide, and it would be an extremely good dinner, Madam Deputy Speaker. So I very much regret that that cut was made. I'm very pleased to hear that the Chancellor puts a priority on it. We must never forget in this House that the development budget doesn't only make some of the poorest people in the world safer and more prosperous, it makes us in Britain, in our constituencies, in our economic centres, safer and more prosperous as well. Can I ask the Treasury bench to clarify whether or not the SDRs that the IMF have issued, and indeed the other measures, in particular vaccines, will come out of the 0.5 as it now is, or will be in addition to that? Perhaps at some point a Minister could make clear what the position is on that. So the third and final point I wanted to make, Madam Deputy Speaker, was about value for money. And I am very conscious that the taxpayer is going to provide an immense amount of money for the catch-up in the NHS and on social care. And when this measure was announced in the House, a very welcome measure indeed by the Government, I asked what plans the Treasury had to monitor what taxpayers are actually getting for this additional money. And I did not think that the response from the Treasury bench was as good as it could have been. What I want to see is Treasury officials all over this money. This is money provided by hard-earned taxpayers. We need to demonstrate to taxpayers one of the mantras of DFID before the department was vaporised. And the mantra was, for every hard-earned pound you take off the taxpayer, you must deliver 100 pence of value on the ground. And for this extra money that is being raised through national insurance, £12 billion a year, I hope the Treasury will make certain that the department spending it justify every penny of it, so that we can assure our constituents this really is successful incremental spending which is working to their advantage. Thank you.